waste money on war. So yes, there are extremists in our government willing to kill people to get what they want. But let's jump to this story. This next story, we have a tweet from Steven Crowder. Facebook is now censoring the Nashville Manifesto. This is what we saw almost immediately after the story broke. This is what the news, this is what big tech companies do. Many news media outlets, they didn't want to cover the story. Social media companies don't want to get into any kind of debate, and this is a serious problem. We now know, based on local reporting and statements from local politicians, the leaks from Steven Crowder are real, and at the time, Facebook was taking them down. Google had their stupid alert when you searched for it saying, the results are changing rapidly. Here are some other stories instead, which is what they do when they don't want you to read these stories. Here's what happens. Big tech companies basically say, if it doesn't come from the New York Times, we will not allow it. If, however, you get 5,000 local outlets reporting it, then there's nothing they can do to stop it. But they tried to stop it. And so, fortunately, I guess, local news outlets immediately jumped on the story, broke through, and the story made it out. I think one of the biggest fears that Facebook and YouTube and many other platforms, not Rumble, not X, for instance, their fear, Steven Crowder just set the news cycle.
Right.
And the New York Times is going to try to avoid it. They're going to be like, no, don't pick up his story. We're the ones who decide what people are talking about. But they've been losing that position. Steven Crowder was questioned by these news outlets, how do you know it's real? We stand by our reporting. And it is a political comedian on YouTube who broke the biggest story today.
Because of people in their network. I mean, from what I understood from what he was saying during his live stream, it was someone involved in Mug Club who was like, I have a contact, I know a way to get this, and they were able to verify through that. That's pretty impressive, right? I mean, this is true. All journalists rely on their readers for tips. This is super normal, but it is interesting that he has built such a relationship that someone would be willing to potentially take, and I don't know who the source was, like a professional risk to get them this information. That shows a lot of confidence in Steven Crowder.
Citizen journalism.
And it's not citizen journalism.
Well, but the citizen gave the journalism to Crowder to amplify the message. That's an aspect of modern citizen journalism.
This is the idea that this is citizen journalism was created to discredit people like Steven Crowder. Mm-hmm. I know this because I was at these conventions, I was at these conferences, and I was speaking at these events, and they kept saying you're just a citizen journalist. I said no. Citizen journalism is a guy walking his dog, and then all of a sudden he sees a plane in the sky on fire, so he pulls out his phone and films it, and it crashes, and he goes, whoa, and then he tweets a video.
I guess there's no way to know who it was that delivered
But
They didn't give it to Fox.
But that's meaningless. The New York Times has sources all day, every day. Someone in law enforcement releases information, the New York Times publishes it. Steven Crowder is no different from the New York Times. Granted, he is a comedian on YouTube, but his news apparatus that got this information and published it is the same as WikiLeaks' system, the same as New York Times' system. You have someone who liaises with a source, the source provides information, the information is vetted and then reported.
I just think it's cool that this is something he has built, right? When he was posting videos initially on YouTube, I'm sure he did not expect to be in the position he is today, which is that he decided what the news is going to be about. I mean, he came out with this on a Monday for a reason. This is going to lead the news cycle, at least for the next couple days, probably through the end of the week.
This may actually force the release of the full manifesto.
Which is probably the only way we would have gotten it out.
So one of the ideas that's being put out on X, on social media, is that these are select pages, and that in reality, while everyone's highlighting the anti-white sentiment that seems to have motivated the shooter, there's way more in there, and this person hates everybody and uses slurs for everybody, but the selective release would make it seem like it was one-sided.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable. I wouldn't be surprised if it's, not that I want to make predictions about such a dark document, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a consistent anti-white theme, because I think, as far as I can tell, Audrey Hale was white, and I think a lot of people who are raised in, or who are coming up in progressive spheres are trained to hate themselves, especially if they're white.
Well, if you look at what was said in it, the perpetrator says things like private schools and fancy khakis.
And she attended that school.
It was very Marxist-esque. It was very oppressor versus oppressed.
Exactly.
So she was taking this back to the oppressors, and she was going to get the justice, and she hoped she had a high kill count. She said things like that in the document. And that's where the mark, I posted about something critical about public schools the other day, about how they're teaching Marxism to our kids. And somebody commented and said, they don't teach Marxism at public schools. I'm like, you don't explicitly have to give out a book by Marx to be teaching Marxism. It's this idea of this oppressor versus this oppressed thing, this critical theory thing. And when you just ram that down people's heads, you end up like militarizing and radicalizing an entire generation.
Yeah, they indoctrinate people with Marxism. Right. They don't, unfortunately, as far as I know, actually teach the theories of Marxism enough. They should probably teach that more so that you can realize if you were being indoctrinated.
No teaching in public school.
If they taught actual Marxist theory along with history of Marxism, the children would be crying by the end of the day and say, why would anyone ever do such a thing, those poor people? The 100 million who were
1958, 1962,
died.
Great Leap Forward, 100 million.
It's so easy
More
to be
than
like,
that, too.
we're
Yes.
all in
Yep.
this together. Let's go, all of us. And then once the revolution happens, it's
Marxism
like,
killed
now
more
who's in
people
charge?
between 1958 and 1962 than white supremacism did between 1619 and 2019.
Yeah.
How many
4
people
years.
did it from 4 years?
Estimates of 100 million during the
In
Great
just
Leap
those
Forward.
4 years?
During the Great Leap Forward in China, they starved.
No, I don't think it was 100 million in 4 years.
Those are the high estimates.
100 million?
Yes, 1958, 1962. Look up the Great Leap Forward on Wikipedia. I believe estimates go as high as 100 million. There are lower ones that are in like the 50, 60 range.
Room is filled with rapid typing.
Yeah.
30 and 45.
30 and 45
Yeah,
million?
100 is the total deaths of communism, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
You got to grab the mic, brother.
Give it to me, Serge. What's the word?
We can't hear you. No one else can either.
Yeah. Just in the 100 million is over the entire period of communist China,
Yeah.
not necessarily from like the
No.
particular
The
Great Leap Forward.
it's not. No, that's all communism.
Oh, okay.
I
cool.
believe that there is a study that estimates that 100 million Chinese died specifically from the Great Leap Forward, but it might not be the most widely accepted study. But I'm almost positive that on the Wikipedia page for the Great Leap Forward,
100 million, I
And
think,
The
is
Wikipedia
communism
says
total.
55 is the high end and
Also,
15 is the low
it is
end.
Wikipedia.
Okay.
We do take it with
Alright.
a grain of salt. But
Yeah,
I
that's
believe you. I
true.
mean, I think this is one of those things where why would they?
well, it's not that bad if it's only 50 million.
Jeez, 50 million people.
no, I think your other
It's
point
still
still
way more than the
stands.
Holocaust. It's like 10 times more.
And this is like the Great Leap Forward. I mean, I can try and explain it. It's when he took like a bunch of the teachers and things, and then he sent them out to the farms and was like, "We gotta."
Yeah, it's the other way around. He wanted to industrialize the nation of China to make it a factory-based sort of exporter. And so he took all the agricultural people and put them in the cities, so nobody was working the farms. Then everybody that was responsible for the districts of the farms was too scared to report to their higher-ups they weren't meeting quotas on harvest. Because China's, communism, you're scared to tell your boss you're not meeting numbers. And so they didn't realize that there was like a mass shortage of food until it was too late and everybody starved over like 4 years.
That's why I always feel like you can't trust any numbers that come out of China because, number one, why would they report anything accurately to the outside world anyways? And also, why would they internally report accurately? There's no benefit for them.
But why would the U.S.? Yeah,
Oh.
I tweeted this out over the weekend. TikTok may be Chinese communist propaganda, but Facebook and YouTube are American communist
Yeah,
propaganda.
that was what the Fourth Estate was all about.
Shout out to Elon Musk
We were
for
supposed to- yeah.
liberating X and to Chris Pavlovsky for making Rumble.
And for lifting up the fourth pillar.
Mainstream media does not want this to get out. They created this person. They created this individual with the propaganda they've been spewing for the past 2 years. And like I said last night, and I've been saying constantly, is that the biggest enemy to you and I right now is big tech and mainstream media. Those are our biggest enemies because they spew actual misinformation, propaganda, cultivated narratives. But when you speak the truth, the conspiracy theories are always true. When I say always truth, they're always true. I've went down the rabbit hole. I've been in the rabbit hole deep for 2-3 years now. Deep. And I've said some wacky things. They all come out to be true. All of them. Even things that were so wacky that I questioned. There's no way. It becomes true. It comes out as true. Every freaking time. The Democrat politicians didn't want you to see this. Obviously, we're going into election season. It completely destroys their white supremacists are the biggest terror threat to the country narrative. It destroys it. And if you notice that white hate, because that's what this whole shooting was about, the manifesto was about, white hate is never covered by mainstream media. Now, if you recall last night what I said, when a white individual, being white, the media makes you out to be the oppressor. Okay? And so how does one, a liberal, get out of being the oppressor? Well, they go to an oppressed community, like LGBT. Now all of a sudden they are now oppressed. And hence why this manifesto is so odd, because she used racial slurs, and she's white.
Worry not.
She used
I am here.
racial slurs against white people, and she's white while being white. She talked badly about the kids that went to the school. She went to the same school. She was just as privileged.
Worry not.
She
I
even
am
said
here.
LGBT slurs, and she identifies as that. She was against privileged people. The Marxist ideology. She believed. I told you. I've been saying this for a few days now that people. Yeah, if you want to go just see it right now when we're talking, and you can keep your video up, just go to DuckDuckGo and you can go get those images right now. If you don't want to wait for me, just go ahead and go do that, or you can just follow me on Instagram anyway. I'm always putting out stuff there. I miss the stuff I put out there anyway. But you can look at these images while I'm talking. The other odd thing is she talked badly about Christianity,
My blade is ready.
Christian school, while mentioning God,
Be
that
my
she helped,
firewood.
that prays that God helps her in the manifesto. Like
Worry not. I am here.
she also, what I find very, very odd, and this is the biggest thing that stuck out to me in this,
Get out of my way.
is
Be my
that
firewood.
she references almost being caught in 2021.
Worry not.
Did
Be my firewood.
the feds
Be
already
my
know about her? Did they already
firewood.
visit her? Did she hear voices? What type of, how'd you get the rifles? What types were they? I think we know what types they were, but 2021, she says that she almost got caught. So she was a white girl that went to a Christian school and said these people are privileged while being that person. I wonder what type of medication she was on. I would like to know that, because if you know that every single shooter, not just one, every one of them have been on some kind of meds. If you know a guy by the name of John Noveski, the late John Noveski, he created Noveski rifle, some of the finest rifles you can get. This article is from, I think, 2013 here. Yeah. Prominent
my
rifle manufacturer
firewood.
killed in a mysterious car crash just days after posting psych drug link to school shooters. And in this article
Worry
here,
not. I am here.
he goes over his post and names all of them. This is the Facebook page before his death. Just days before his death, he posted this, and then he mysteriously dies in a single car accident. This shooter was on Prozac. This shooter was on Paxil. This shooter was on Prozac, Zoloft,
Worry not. I am
Prozac,
here.
Zoloft, Ritalin, Paxil, Celexa. Sorry, I'm from the country, so if I say Ritalin, you guys that hold your pinkies out, Ritalin, Prozac. All the guys that gotta try to correct me, and they hold their drinks like this right here.
Worry not. I am here.
But I want to know what type of med she was on, because obviously she was. Look at the manifesto. This is not from a normal individual. Okay, it goes randomly, goes through the schedule of her day, like down to 5-minute intervals, saying she's going to go to get lunch. Very odd, just oddities all around it. But I do want to know the 2001 incident. I think what the problem is, and the reason why they're keeping this under wraps, is because there's a lot more to this that's really going to blow this thing out of the water. Obviously, it already has, because it kills the mainstream media propaganda and the narrative they try to push on who the real threats to society is. But I think what we're going to find out is there's way more to this. And the feds typically always knew about it. Oh yeah, we knew about the individual. We made contact with the individual. right? But the left keeps saying that guns are the problem. But guns aren't the problem. It seems like white privileged misinformation narratives that propaganda is driving mentally unstable people to do things like this, right? These by all means, these privileged white folks that go to these private schools, and then they're told by the mainstream media that they should go take out their own kind. That's what essentially happened here, right? Because they want to be socially the morally superior individual. But I believe that Steven Crowder posted that he will be releasing more information tomorrow, so I'm very interested to see what that is. But I thought initially that maybe they didn't want to put this out because it may spark others. But by reading this, I can't see that. Can't see that. But the mainstream media is complicit in all of this stuff. They're dividing the country based on race or gender, ideology, whatever they want to do, Republican, Democrat, whatever way they can. They're even dividing conservatives right now. Conservatives are so divided. Some of them are pro-Hamas, some of them are pro-Israel. I mean, it's crazy. You know, I mean, everybody's getting divided. They're letting the media, social media, big tech, they're letting propaganda, you know, who do you think is pumping out a lot of this propaganda you're seeing about the Israel and Hamas? Probably Iran. You think they don't have intelligence agencies? Do you not think that China has intelligence agencies? Do you not think that, you ever heard of Operation Mockingbird, Northwoods? Do you not think that our CIA or intelligence agencies, FBI, is not running some type of operations right now within the U.S.? With media, with big tech? We knew they did. It's not a secret. This is not something made up. This is not a conspiracy theory. They did leading into the election. They went to Twitter. Elon Musk dropped tons of files on that. Apparently there was a bunch of information released just maybe 2 hours ago that all the big tech companies were working to suppress people, even with memes. If it was politically motivated memes that was conservative, jokes, personal opinions, the freedom of speech is gone. And do you think any Republicans are fighting for that? No, absolutely not. None of them. None of them are. The Republican Party is doing absolutely nothing. They're a joke. They're a joke. They're doing nothing, right? You're on your own. You're your own first responder, your own hero. You're going to have to self-rescue. Nobody's coming to save you. All those things. Anyhow, guys, make sure you follow me on Instagram. Go check out, if you don't want to follow me on Instagram, go check on .go or whatever, and I'll look up this manifesto and just go over the key points I talked about. Come back to the video, watch what I said, see what you think, and please let me know in the comments if you think there's more. What do you think it is? What do you think the motivators is? And I just want to know your thoughts on this situation. Anyhow, guys, remember to stay frosty, stay strapped, and always stay dangerous. Take care.
Come on. I'll point.
Back into the flame domain.
This is Jocko Podcast number 276 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Right now,
My blade is ready.
the belief is that, I think we'll know more
Be
about
my
this
firewood.
here, that a few things happen all at the same time. It's a perfect storm. First, Hamas has been planning this attack for 2 years, and one of the leaders of Hamas actually said that they've been strategically lulling Israel to sleep. One of the leaders of Hamas actually said, no longer interested, that they've been strategically lulling Israel to sleep. One of the leaders of Hamas actually said, no longer interested, that they've been strategically lulling Israel to sleep. One of the leaders of Hamas actually said, no longer interested. Reward for good behavior, right? They thought mode where they're more concerned about the economics of the Gaza Strip than about attacking Israel. So Israel also had transferred a lot of IDF that would normally be
my firewood
to the West Bank. It was also the Sabbath. It was also a major holiday. It's also they had the biggest protests in a generation, almost the same way America was during 2020. Israel has been for the past several months over their judicial reform. So you put it all together.
Can you go into that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so basically the judicial reform in Israel is not like the United States. They don't have a constitution. They don't have this kind of really beautiful genius system of checks and balances that we have where, president can veto Congress.
Be my firewood.
Check on everyone. Right?
Be my firewood.
Israel just has a single parliament they call the Knesset, a prime minister that has a lot of control over that parliament because he leads the majority coalition. But basically, in Israel, the president and their Congress have a lot more power than in America, historically. The Supreme Court doesn't have the power to say no. But over the past 30 years, the Supreme Court has been basically grabbing more power for itself under these things called basic laws, where they can now say to the Knesset, no, you cannot implement that policy in the West Bank. It violates human rights. They have more powers to check the majority party. And that's come to a head now because the Supreme Court is perceived as left-wing and sympathetic to the Palestinians. Just like in America right now, the Supreme Court is perceived as right-wing. And the Benjamin Netanyahu is obviously Likud, he's the right-wing party, and he's gone into coalition with these ultra kind of right-wing religious, and so it's come to a head where basically the right in Israel feels the Supreme Court is just expanding its own power and is anti-democratic. And now they want to, judicial reform is basically stripping the Supreme Court of the power it's grabbed for itself over the past 30 years. Now the left in Israel views the Supreme Court as the only protection against human rights violations and violations of minority rights. So the left feels the Supreme Court is a great defender of Israeli human rights, and the right feels that the Supreme Court is an undemocratic institution that's been expanding its own power for 30 years and now needs to be reined in so that the majority can govern. That's torn apart the country. It's absolutely the number one issue every day, protests all over Israel. So you put all this together with Hamas backed by Iran, and you also throw in the fact that Israel and Saudi Arabia are on the verge of a peace deal, which is huge. It would be the biggest news in the Middle East in a very long time if Israel and Saudi Arabia made peace. It would basically put kind of the death nail in the coffin for Hamas, because Saudi Arabia is the biggest holdout now in terms of who has not made peace with Israel. So Hamas, from the point of view of Hamas and Iran, they think this is a last chance, kind of. We have to attack now, kill this deal, or we're dead forever. And they planned this thing meticulously for 2 years, intentionally lulling the Israelis to sleep. And they have brilliant success, much more success than they expected to. Now, some people have said it's an inside job. I don't believe it is. I think if it is, we'll know that from reporting that comes out in the next 2 years. But at this point, I believe the theory that it was an incredibly successful attack by Hamas and a perfect storm.
Well, that all connects and makes sense, if that's the case. What's terrifying is there doesn't seem, what's always terrified me about the Middle East is that there doesn't seem to be a clear way to resolve this. I mean, if Saudi Arabia and Iran, or Israel came to some sort of an agreement and made peace and were able to establish that long term, that'd be a great step in the right direction. But other than that, like when you look at what's happened now, oh my God, the rhetoric from both sides, it's just, didn't we learn anything from World War II? Didn't we learn anything from the Holocaust? Didn't we learn anything from human beings' ability to other human beings, to just turn them into a thing that's not them, dehumanize them? And that there's this impulse to do so that existed forever, because when we were tribal people that probably barely had a language, you had to be absolutely terrified of marauding male tribes that came over your border and wanted to kill you and take your resources and steal your women, because that's what they did. And so we have this ability to look at other human beings as an other and get ruthless and horrifyingly violent, because that was the only way for us to survive for thousands of years. So it's ingrained in our system. Lie to people if it's for the overall better good of the nation. It's wild. And that's the root of the issue. The root of the issue is how every human being sort of reluctantly admits that there's almost no way to stop all wars. Right now, if you had a magic solution to stop all wars in the world, what would it be? It doesn't exist. That's terrifying, because the thing that we are scared of the most is global thermonuclear war. The thing that everybody should be the most terrified of, that we get so stupid that we wipe every human being off the face of the planet, and we're more than capable of doing it some insane number of times over. And that they're playing with the very first steps of that game. They've moved the first pawn out onto the chessboard of the global thermonuclear war chess game. That is the world.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Every single nation that's involved in every conflict, and all these people controlling resources over a group of gigantic people with their representative, and they're saying these people are the bad people, and they're saying you're the bad people. It's just like human beings have always done. It's like literally a part of our system.
So I agree with you that we are built and hardwired for deep levels of violence. Those of us that have been lucky enough to live in safety and security, we may not realize the violence we're capable of because we've never had to survive.
Right.
But I do believe that there is a difference. You mentioned the lessons of World War II, right? We were capable of violence, Hitler was capable of violence, but we were not the same as Hitler.
Right.
There was an imperative for us to defeat him at almost any cost, and we did horrible things in that war. But people understand that there was a good side and there was an evil side. I think that really believes what they write in their charter in the late 80s, that they want to annihilate every single Jew in Israel and replace it with an Islamic State, and eventually have a state like ISIS. And that what they did on October 7th with the barbaric slaughter, that's the point for them. That is what they want to do to all of Israel. And the difference is that Israel, though like the American army, it's like there's been many excesses, much to criticize. If Israel wanted to annihilate Hamas and the Palestinians, the same way Hamas wants to annihilate Israel, Hamas would be gone and there would be no Palestinians in Gaza. We know that Israel could obliterate them overnight. Why don't they? Well, for mixed reasons, but because they don't want to. They want to live in peace fundamentally. And so I don't think the two sides are equivalent here, though they're both capable of that universal among humans, which is cruelty. I don't think these two sides are the same. I really think this is a situation where there is a good guy and a bad guy.
What solution could possibly be created that would somehow or another calm this down at this point? After that attack, it's so horrifying. But then the response is horrifying too, where who knows how many civilians have died in Gaza.
Yeah.
So we're terrified of both. And then there's this narrative that, what was the thing with the hospital?
Oh yeah, so this has been going on the past 48 hours. Basically what happened is the entire media, the Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by Hamas, said that Israel just bombed a hospital and killed 500 people. The entire media ran with this story. New York Times, BBC, everyone said 500 killed in Israeli airstrike on hospital. Obviously this is monstrous if so, right? Why would Israel bomb a hospital? Israel is known to have at least a policy of not bombing hospitals because Israel feels that it wants to generally respect what a war crime is, right? That's the policy at least. So this went viral. Then it turned out, actually, most likely, it actually turned out 100% the hospital wasn't bombed. It was the parking lot next to the hospital. So that was the first inaccuracy in the story. Then it turned out it's very, very unlikely to be an Israeli airstrike. And almost certainly not a Hamas rocket, but a